Hello YouTube, this is Frugal, and here we are taking a first look at the Real Air Simulations Duke B60 version 2. This is somewhat of an important aircraft because the Real Air Simulations Duke is widely regarded as probably one of the best simulations of a twin-engined general aviation aircraft that you can get. And Real Air have just updated this to version 2, which is pretty stonking. So they've taken what was already a phenomenal aircraft and made it better, and it really is better. Before we get into the nitty-gritty detail of what this does, then we get the pricing and everything out of the way, because people always ask that. The price for this is $17 if you own the Real Air Piston Duke version 1, not the Turbine Duke, but version 1 of the Piston Duke. It is 30 euros. Sorry, if I said dollars just now, I meant euros. It is 30 euros if you don't already own version 1. So, not cheap for a general aviation aircraft, but if you're passionate about your flight and you want something as real as you can get, then I think it's worth every penny. This is pretty much the general, this is pretty much the twin-engined equivalent to A2A's Cessna 172. It is that good. It is really good. Has an external configuration program that you can use to turn on and off certain features, such as reflections, and to turn up or turn down the realism. That external program can also be used to even change the suspension. The team at Real Air have built in different suspension effects based on whether you're taxiing over hard surface or rough surface, so grass or tarmac. Currently it's set to tarmac, obviously, because we are on the tarmac here at Kilo Sierra Foxtrot Bravo, which is my local airport. That would be Orlando Sanford. A number of improvements that they've made to this aircraft. If you have version 1, I'll try to run through them. Let me just grab my notes. I've made copious notes. This is going to read a little bit like their marketing blurb. There's really no other way of getting all through this, and then I'll go into it and I'll put a frugal spin on it later on. Higher def, 2 meg textures, much higher def than previously. Improved detail and clearer panels, which you're going to see in a second. Custom vibration, we already mentioned. Flight model improvements. Now, the Real Air Duke version 1 already had a phenomenal flight model. That's why it's highly regarded. It's been improved even more, and they've improved the rudder response and yaw behavior of this aircraft. And, let's go in the cockpit, they have improved the slip indicator. Apparently the slip indicator had a bug in the previous version, so it's actually very hard to get a level rate turn, a standard rate turn going. That is not the case with this one. This flies amazingly. You can rely on the instruments now, and in fact, as you're going to see when I take this up, this is one of the few aircraft I've got that you can fly properly. Now, what I mean by that is, if you're flying VFR, then you really should be looking out the window more than you're looking at the instruments. You know, when you start your turn, you're going to check to see whether the way is clear before you turn, and then you're going to match the position of the horizon on the windshield and try to manage your turn that way. This is one of the few simulated aircraft where you can actually do that very well. The reason I say that is in FSX, obviously, there is no seat of the pants feel to what you're doing, so you don't know by feeling whether your turn is uncoordinated because you're not getting thrown sideways in the cockpit. This aircraft, though, does bring it off very well. They have a full set of view modifications in this as well, which I've turned off many of them. You can click on click spots down here and it will jump you to that specific view. But in addition, they have something called real view, which puts forces in play, and I've left those on when you take off, when you land, when you turn, which will kind of move the pilot's head or shake it up and down if it's a hard landing, all that good stuff. I've left those on. They're pretty good. In addition, it gets better. The sound has been upgraded, so all these switches now have unique sounds. Look. They all sound slightly different up or down, very metallic, just the way they should feel. You get nice hefty thunks when you lower the flaps or lower the landing gear. In addition, they've even gone to the level of detail here of, look at this table back here. You can open this table and it opens in multiple stages. It kind of pops out, slides down, then unfolds, then lays flat. At each stage there are different sounds, and the sounds are exactly synced to the animation. Look. I know that's a really stupid touch. I mean, we don't really care. We want to be flying the aircraft, but it does show the level of detail that these guys have gone to. I mean, even squeaking leather from the armrest. Look. Amazing level of detail Real Air have gone to with this aircraft. It really is an incredible aircraft. Now, as I said, we are at Orlando Sanford. It is quite a windy day. Clear skies, good visibility, great day for flying, but quite a breezy day, which is why I wanted to take it up today to really show you how this thing handles as well. We currently have 16 knots wind, gusting to 20 from 210. We're going to be taking off on runway 27, so a bit of a crosswind when we take off that we're going to need to manage. So let's run through the startup of this aircraft and show you some more of the detail on this. It's pretty phenomenal in that, sorry, in fact, before we do that, let me just fly around the cockpit here and show you some of this stuff. Full 3D modeling on all of these instruments, which is to say, when people say 3D dials or 3D gauges, what they actually mean is that the needles are 3D objects which hover above the surface of the dial itself. So they each have a life of their own. Not just a flat 2D animation displayed as a texture. Those are independent needles which move independently, have a life of their own. You're going to see those bounce around and jostle around. Two yokes, they are fully animated. Let me move mine. There we are. I'm actually going to turn those off, just because I prefer to be able to get to all these switches down here. Despite the complexity of this cockpit, quite a lot of switches there, it is actually very, very easy to get it started and to manage, as I will show you right now. So to get this started up, I'm going to turn the battery on. We're going to turn the fuel boost pumps on. I'm going to set prop pitch to maximum, left and right. I'm actually using 6 levers here, and the mixture all the way up to full rich for about 10 or 15 seconds to prime the engine. I think that's a good level there. Let's just check that the fuel cutoff switches are in the on position, which they are. Great. So now we can go ahead and start the left engine. So you can just roll the mouse wheel on this switch. There's both. Let's roll it up to start. When the engine fires, I'm going to move the mixture for the left engine all the way up to full rich. In fact, before I do that, I'm going to crack the throttle a little bit as well. Let me do that right now. There we are. Here we go. There's the beautiful sound of that engine. Watch the needles. See it bouncing around? Now, because we only have one engine running, you'll notice a bit of a torque effect here, and the aircraft is shaking. It is shaking the dash. You can see these needles are kind of bouncing. It's a very real cockpit. Let's try the right engine now. So, crack that throttle. Mouse wheel once again up to both, and then start. Oh, blup, 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 there it goes. Wonderful sounds. With that done, now we can click the generators on. Set our inverter. It's a warm day, even though it's quite breezy here, so we are going to half open these cowl flaps here, and I'm just going to check the barometric pressure on the other computer, which is 29905, so we will go ahead and set that here. We'll let those engines warm up. I'm not turning on the master avionics switch yet. I want to do a little battery test before we do that. Okay, so let's look at the load down here. There's the load. If we turn this up and turn that up, see the load increasing as we turn on the taxi and the landing lights. So let us now turn the battery off, just running on the generators from the engines. Needles drop, but not significantly. They're still in a good range, so we're good to go on that. I'm going to turn those lights off. I should have turned my beacon on. I will do that now. I apologize for not doing that sooner. Don't go picking holes. Okay, let's turn the master avionics switch on. So you have a standard FSX GPS. You can fit in the Reality XP GPS if you have one. I do not have that, so I'm not using it. Then a standard COM and nav radio set here. Let's turn all of these on. Right, we're flying the VFR today, so 1200 on the squawk code. We'll set that straight away up to alt. Let's go ahead and set our radios up. We're actually going to take off and fly to the east towards Melbourne, which is a VOR beacon very much near Cape Kennedy Space Center. Now that is on a frequency of 110. The dials work the same as they did in version 1, which I really, really like about Real Air. So I can left click and hold to change this major part of the number. So left click, hold, and then drag 110. And then right click, hold, and drag to change the minor part of the number, 110.00. We're going to be returning, obviously, to Sanford on ILS approach to runway 27 right. That is 110.15. So right click, hold, and drag. We've got our standby in there already. We're good to go. Not using ATC today. The ADF, by the way, for Sanford, so we don't get lost, is 408. So the same principle applies. Left click and hold. You can very, very quickly tune all these instruments just by this click and hold technique, which is why I like it. Lots of numbers to go through here, and it's very, very quick to just right click now and hold, drag it down to 408. I like that a lot. Now the autopilot, it's a very, very simple KFC 225 autopilot system. You're probably familiar with it from some of the other aircraft. Very, very straightforward, nothing really to worry about here. We're going to go heading select out to the east first. So I've already dialed in east on the heading select, so we'll choose heading here. We're going to climb to an altitude of 5,000. So once again, we'll just roll this with the mouse wheel. You can't click and hold that, I just tried it. I thought you could. Oh, you can click and hold. My apologies. So 5,000 feet. Armed at vertical speed. Now, there are winglets on this aircraft, and they work. So if you're familiar with the Duke version 1, there's the winglets. The winglets here will actually lower the source speed and increase climb performance. So you can get a climb now in excess of 1,600 feet per minute, which is pretty cool. So we just set in there 5,000 feet. We've armed it at 1,600 feet per minute climb. That is pretty nice. We are pretty much good to go. Runway 27 right is just over there, so in fact I'm going to do the run-up check right here. Facing a wall is probably not a good idea, but it's a simulator, so we can get away with this. So I'm going to pop the left engine all the way up to 2,000 RPM. I'm going to do the mag check now. Whoops, there it goes. A little bit higher than I wanted, but we'll go down to the left mag. You'll see a drop. Good. Let's go down to the right mag. Should be the same drop, which it is. That is all good. Let's bring the RPM back on that to idle, or about 1,000, just to keep the heat building. Let's do the right engine now. No 3D sound in this, just stereo sound. It doesn't matter. Alright, going to see a drop as we go to the left. Should be the same drop as we go to the right. And back to normal. We're all good there. Lovely stuff. Okay, so let's turn some lights on. So we're going to turn nav. Strobes will leave off until we get to the runway, and we will turn the taxi lights on. This thing taxis very well. You can turn it using the power levers if you wish to. It does turn on differential braking as well. Now I'm using track IR now for the taxi. It's a lot easier. I'm actually going to turn to the left, and then we will turn left again. Doesn't require a whole lot of power to get moving on the ground, which is correct. So brakes off, and we're moving. Like any twin, it will pick up speed very rapidly. Just using nose wheel steering here right now, not even differential braking. If I wanted to snap it around, I could increase the power to the right engine, which I'm not going to do. Don't want to ruin our tires. This does model maintenance-based failures over time. Not to the extent that an AccuSim aircraft like the 172 does, but they are in there, so you do need to treat the aircraft with respect. And it is properly simulated. Every aspect of managing this aircraft in flight and on the ground is properly simulated. So again, you need to treat it with a little bit of respect. Now, not a long taxi out to 27 right, but I might cut the video. Depends how much I can keep thinking of talking about on our way to the runway itself. By the way, we're actually now heading to the east, which is, as I said, the direction we're going to be taking after we take off. So we're going to take off and then turn to the left and turn around to 090 until we can pick up the VOR at Melbourne. Then I will show you the autopilot intercept on the VOR. It's very smooth. And we'll fly out towards Kennedy Space Center. That was a bit of differential braking there because the aircraft was getting away from me. So a very sloppy turn, I apologize. Here is 27 right. Now we're not going to join here, we're going to cross the runway. Make sure nothing's coming. There is no traffic in here, but it's always a good idea to get in the habit of doing things like that, like checking, especially if you fly on VATSIM. Although if you're smart and fly on VATSIM, you've probably turned collisions off. once again, crossing a runway, crossing 18. Checking. I think you can see the windsock there up in the distance, pointing hard left. That's that crosswind that we're talking about. Going to be quite an interesting landing if that doesn't drop. And looking at the weather on the other computer here, it hasn't dropped yet. I think we dropped 1 knot, so it's 15, 1.5 now, gusting to 20. Not quite the winds they had in England over the past week, but still interesting. A significant wind element for today's flight, which is unusual for a frugal video. Normally I don't do that. Normally I have fairly easy conditions so we can focus on the aircraft, but this aircraft does fly so well, I thought, why not? Let's have a bit of a challenge. Now the aircraft does come with a full PDF. It's a fairly extensive PDF about flying it. Also with a full set of charts, performance charts, which you will need if you start taking this into pressurized altitudes. It's a fully pressurized cabin. Pressurization controls are down here. We're not going to do that today. We're just going to keep it around 5,000. But this will happily cruise at about 25,000 feet and has quite a good range as well. And with the instruments in here, that makes it a very, very good instrument trainer. Multi-engine, of course. Right, so we're lining up, so let's put our strobes on, landing lights on. Now the landing lights and the taxi lights are actually attached to the wheels, and they do turn off automatically. The switches won't go off, but in the wheel bay I think they are turned off. Alright, so we're good to go, I think. Let's check our trim. Let's go take off. Notice the engines are not coming up at exactly the same rate. I am using separate levers for them, but just like the real aircraft, sometimes one engine is not exactly the same as the other engine in terms of its response. Alright, looking for about 90 knots, which we're coming up to now. In fact, we're over it, so we're pulling back on the yoke here, and we're airborne. There is our wind element. Positive rate gear up. Listen for the thunk. Now it's a flaps off takeoff. Didn't really need the flaps given the wind today, so don't have to worry about retracting the flaps at this point. Feeding in quite a lot of right rudder there. Let me fix that. We're just going to nose up a little bit, try to get our 1,500, 1,600 feet per minute climb rate. Watching our speed there, should be climbing around about 120, 130. We're actually a little bit fast right now. It is very windy. Let's turn our landing lights off at this point, and our taxi lights. Try to get in a standard rate turn now, so there is our 30 degrees of bank. Listen to the wind. You have that modeled in here, so you'll hear the wind slicing through the air as you perform various maneuvers. We'll stall this later on and you'll see what it sounds like then. You get a lot of buffet, a lot of wind noise. It's pretty awesome. Right, let me show you what the autopilot's like. So we're in heading hold and climbing to 5,000. There we go. It's starting to level off now. Really is a beautiful day here in Sanford. Now just trying to find our right amount of pitch to get that 1,600 feet per minute climb that I dialed in. There it is. Now I think we picked up the radial to Melbourne already at this point. 2,000 feet, we should have got it. So let's find out where it is. 2 indicator just flick. There it is. That away. So let's go on to nav now. And we will hold the radial. Now obviously we're going to lose the radial as we make this turn. Listen to the wind again. And so we're letting the autopilot kind of wobble a little bit and try to re-establish itself on that radial. It's a very accurate autopilot. It feels great. Doesn't do anything too severe. Is pretty good. We've got 50 miles to go out to Melbourne. And we have a nice tailwind at this point. Once we get up to 5,000, I will lean the engines and set power. Watching my temperatures here, pretty high temperatures on the cylinder head, so let's open those cowl flaps a bit more. Drop those temperatures down a little bit here. You can hear the engine tone dropping already. Do need to start leaning this, but we are coming up on 5,000. That's where we'll do all the leaning. Speed is dropping as well, thanks to that tailwind. I'm not going to get a reduced rate of climb. We are nearly at 5,000 at this point, so don't really need to worry about it too much. Temperatures are dropping nicely. And there's our 5,000. So let's set power at 32 pounds manifold pressure. Set our prop pitch to 2750. And we'll start leaning the engines by sound. Watching the fuel flow there as well. There we go, that's about perfect. So fairly good fuel flow, quite low. Engine tone is good. And we are established, heading out to Melbourne now on the radial. Let me pop outside and show you what this looks like. Here she is. Absolutely beautiful model. Stunning detail. I should have mentioned on the ground when I ran this up as well. Proper 3D props. So what that means is as you change the prop pitch, you will see these props thicken and thin based on the pitch you're setting. I'm not going to mess with that up in the air right now. What we will do, by the way, is just go back in there. I just remembered we are in the cruise now, so we're going to turn the fuel pumps off. And prop sync on. Let's pop outside again. There we go. Prop sync, of course, is just to reduce unwanted vibration from the two props spinning slightly out of sync with each other. Stunning level of detail on this. The level of detail on this also extends to things like animations on the flaps. We're going pretty fast now. If I were to drop the flaps, you would see a lot of shaking, fluttering from these flaps as the surfaces come down. Let me just check our speed and I will look at doing just that. Alright, we're good. We're not going to break anything. You can break those flaps. You can get a flap failure by dropping them too high. So we're just going to drop the flaps now. You're going to see some fluttering because of the wind hitting them as they come down. Look. See that? That would be the wind hitting them. Isn't that crazy? Let's bring them back up. Let our autopilot re-establish itself. So that level of detail. Beautiful aircraft. Now I had the Duke version 1. And when you install this, after you've installed it in FSX, I had the Duke and the Turbine Duke. So when I installed version 2 in FSX, it showed me just 2 aircraft from Real Air, Duke and Turbine Duke. So I thought it had updated all my version 1 aircraft. The updater actually does not. If you get the update version, it updates most of them and adds some new liveries in, but it doesn't update them all. So be aware of that. Make sure you try an aircraft maybe with this livery, if you do get it, to make sure you're flying the right one. I actually spent 2 weeks researching this, thinking I was flying the Duke version 2, and it's been about a year, 18 months since I last flew the Duke. So I thought it was pretty phenomenal. I didn't realize I was looking at the Duke version 1. That's how good the Duke already was. So when I actually figured out my stupid error, and fired up version 2 here, I was really impressed. It is a beautiful plane. Okay, so we're pretty stable and level now. Everything's looking good. Let me turn the AP off. And I'll show you what this is like in a stall. You can spin this as well. Now, given the size of it, it is tricky to spin, so I'm not going to, but it does have accurate spin performance. It also has fairly violent stall performance, as you're about to see. So I'm going to leave everything where it currently is. Just going to pitch up. Hear the wind hitting the underside of the wing. Speed is coming down now. Now, like I said, it's quite a violent stall. With the real view system, you'll get a lot of visual and audio effects as well. And the aircraft will want to roll as it starts to stall. You need to be aware of that and be all over it, otherwise you're going to have a problem. Here we go. There's the roll. I'm trying to get it stable up a bit. There we are. Easing the back pressure now, still stalled. There we are. Speed's coming up now. So let's bring the nose up before we start to overspeed. You hear the wind hitting those surfaces. Let's put us back at 32 pounds. Beautiful, beautiful plane. So it's quite realistic in the stall. Lots of noise, lots of shaking, lots of wind noise, lots of buffeting. Very awesome. Now, as I said, in terms of its flight model, now that they've fixed that slip indicator, you can fly this so well. It probably is the best flying aircraft I've got, even better than the A2A's 172, to be absolutely honest with you. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this in a standard rate 30-degree turn to the left, and we're going to head to, where are we currently going? We're going to head to the north. So here we go, it's going to check left, no other aircraft here. We'll roll this over. Whoops, a little bit too much rudder there. There's our 30 degrees. We do have that wind, which is affecting us a little bit. Tiny bit of rudder now. We're coordinated. Now starting to climb, so it's going to reduce the nose. Pitch a little bit more left rudder. There we go. Now we're established. This is a level, almost level. Let's get it pitched over a tiny bit more. I'm having trouble because of the wind, which is now very much pushing us the wrong way. There we are. There's our standard rate coordinated turn. So given how much the wind is actually pushing me to the right at this point, it's going to be neat to see us go the other way with that one. So we're going to head out over there to the east, which is actually Kennedy now, over there. 30 degrees, feed in my rudder, a little bit more back pressure on the yoke there. Don't chase the needles, try to do it visually. Yeah, we are getting rolled over a little bit. It was a little bit more than 30 degrees. We'll roll out. You see Kennedy Space Center's vehicle assembly building right there where the space shuttle is put together. So no problem there. Now, a challenge that I always have in general aviation aircraft and FSX, because of that lack of feel, is steep turns, so 60 degrees or more. We got a good amount of height here, so if it drops out of the sky, it's not a problem. Now, the flight model of this has been improved so much that in the Duke version 1, if you tried steep rate turns, you would tend to drop out of the sky a little. You needed a lot of back pressure to try to keep the nose up. That's not so much the case with this. It still has a tendency to drop, but nothing like what it used to. So here we go, let's roll this into 60 degrees. There's our 30, a little bit of right rudder now. A little bit of back pressure on the yoke. That's probably 45, coming up on 60. Bit more right rudder. There we go, look at that. Fully coordinated, steep turn. Nose is starting to drop now. Doesn't take a whole lot of effort to bring it back up though. Quite a dramatic turn. Slip indicators bouncing around. That's partly because of the wind. You can hear the wind now hitting the surface of the aircraft. Very, very cool. Alright, let's head back towards Sanford and we will tackle the landing in this beautiful plane. So I'm going to put the autopilot back on. We're going to go heading hold once again. Let it re-establish us at 5,000 feet. Now I've got my ADF pointing here. Sanford is back here, about 310 is that? So we will just roll this around. To there. Head back towards Sanford. We're getting a left-hand pattern. Cool thing at Sanford with the runway 27 and runway 09 is it's very easy to figure out the heading that you need for the various phases of the pattern. So obviously with 27 we're going to be going crosswind at 180. Then we're going to be going downwind at 090, base at 0 or 360, and then approach on 27. It's actually 275 for the approach, but that's okay. So now we're turning to the right heading. Let's go ahead and switch the radios over here. We will tune in our landing course at 275. We will be using the ILS a little bit. Not a full ILS approach, but we'll use it as a guide for us somewhat. Let's show you outside. Listen to the sound as it goes past. Really good sound modeling, especially with that Doppler effect on the engines as they go past. It really is a beautiful day here in Florida. One thing I like about this as well, it's a stupid little detail, but the pilot doesn't look very computerized because of the amount of texturing they've done on his windows. It kind of masks a little bit of the fact that he is a computer-drawn person. Now he's looking right at us, obviously it's a little bit less convincing, but with all that window marks, it's very good. And back in the cockpit as well, lots of grime and marks here in the cockpit. Let me turn track IR off and I'll show you. You can see dust, grimy marks here, obviously up here as well. It's a well-worn cockpit. Wonderful attention to detail. Let's pop back into the main cabin. We'll show you the obligatory wing view. Flight sim glamour shot. There we are. This is the passenger view. Obviously I'm using EasyDock to change my views. It's a really convincing aircraft. It really is. I mean, just sitting here looking out the wing, I can kind of imagine this. Very, very convincing. Shades don't work. That's okay. The shades do work in the pilot position. Look. Isn't that great? Nice little blue tint there. A little bit off course. Let's change our heading. We can go and look at the GPS and see where we are in relation to KSFB. There's KSFB there. We are actually not going to be required to get into the pattern here. If we were to just head north at this point, we would be on that base leg. So let's go ahead and do that. See if we can pick up the ILS this way. Should be able to. Going to be a little bit high at this point, but that's fine. Rather than use EasyDock to change my view, let me just turn track IR back on. So the runway and the airport should be right about there underneath our engine. There it is. So let's turn in now, turn the autopilot off, reduce power. Let's bring it around. Nice, steady, descending, coordinated turn. Actually, a climbing coordinated turn right now. There we go. Just going to trim it a little bit for this descent. Want about 2,000 feet per minute. Aircraft's getting away from me a tiny bit. Surprised we haven't picked up the ILS yet. I might have the wrong frequency. It doesn't matter. We'll do a visual landing. Let me turn the panel lights on to counter the glare of the sun. Oh, we picked it up. You can see it now. A little bit too fast on that descent. I'm going to go full rich on the mixtures now. We will turn the prop sync off at this point. Strong wind. Very strong wind. Still too high. There's that wind. Hissing like a snake. We're just going to hold the props where they're currently set, so 2750. That will fluctuate a little bit, obviously, based on our speed. Now we're at the right altitude, so bringing our rate of descent back up to a more civilized 5 to 600. Just trimming all the way. Going to need to retrim in a second. Trim is the key. Recenter track IR there. Okay, landing lights on, taxi lights on. Let's put these fuel pumps on. First stage of flaps. We're going to need to retrim significantly now. But we are a little low, so putting in those flaps are going to shallow our rate of descent a little bit. Not the best way to change your rate of descent. Normally pitch controls rate of descent. Sorry, not pitch, power controls your rate of descent. Alright, let's drop the gear and have a nice satisfying thunk there. Boom. You see the dashboard shake as the gears lock into place. Bringing that power back up now. Now, because in a virtual cockpit like this, it's actually very hard to key in a precise course down there. I'm not too worried about following the large vertical beam. I'm more worried about the glide path, glide slope. Plus we have a crosswind, so we need to deal with that. Now the wind is from 210. You can see here we're heading 270, wind is from 210, so the wind is hitting us on our left. A little bit too high, so less power increases our rate of descent. We can re-intercept the glide slope. Not a big deal to be too high, really. We are VFR. It's not instrument conditions. You can see the glide path indicator on the ILS coming back up to meet us now, albeit slowly. Let's go next stage of flaps. Should be a bit of a bumpy landing, so you'll see the real view system kick in with that landing as well to really reinforce how poorly we did it. Don't have a good picture on that runway currently. Getting blown around a lot. A little bit too high, so reducing power. You see the speed needle jump there as we got hit by a gust of wind. Heard a bang from the back of the aircraft as well. Quite a windy day. Unusual. Alright, I'm going to shut up now. we're down. Straighten her up. I think I see my turning on the right. Very bumpy. Just feeling a little bit of brake, not too much. Don't overheat the brakes. Alright, let's bring the flaps up. We can afford to turn those fuel pumps off now. And around we go. We'll taxi back to Starport FBO and shut down. Because a number of you have mentioned that Frugal never shuts an aircraft down on the video, so we will do a shutdown today. Overall though, this is a beautiful plane. If you like general aviation aircraft, you want to do some longer cross-country stuff, maybe you want to practice your instrument approaches ready to get into big jets, this is without doubt a highly recommended aircraft to do all that stuff. Beautiful to fly, very, very realistic. Bit of a handful in places. Does require you to fly a little bit by the numbers as well, especially in the cruise. A really good challenge and a really good fun feeling plane as well. Right, coming off the power a little bit, let the aircraft slow down somewhat on its own. There we go, that's 10 knots ground speed at this point. I'm looking at the GPS, there is a number down there showing me my ground speed. Gently feeding in left rudder to turn the nose wheel. A bit more power, we slow down in the turn. As all aircraft do. There we go, 10 knots ground speed. We're going to turn here. We'll go park where we started. Put the aircraft back where we found it so the rental people don't get grumpy. And I think we are good to go. Let's leave it there. Let's put our parking brake on. Okay. So, reduce the right engine to cut off. Now the left engine. Let's turn these lights off. I'll leave the beacon on for now. Let's turn master avionics off. While we're here, let's pop back into the cabin there and open the doors. Show you the door animations. I never show that either in my videos, so why the hell not? Let me just check which view I have set up on external. Okay, that's a good view. So I have to go back in the cabin now. Bear with me here, guys. So what we need to do is click on the door handle, and then we'll pop outside. And there's your door animation. Beautiful aircraft, beautiful aircraft. Anyway, thank you for watching. My name is Frugal. If you have not checked it out already, you really need to get over to facebook.com/frugalsim, where there's a lot of behind the scenes information on videos like this, and you'll see all the drama I went through actually to get this recorded. And you get the opportunity to chat with me and the other fans of Frugal Sim. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.